Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Daily Bible Study Devotional, where we're slowly working our way through the entire Bible, one chapter at a time. So sorry that this one's coming a little bit later, and I had the wedding on the weekend, so we missed one last week, but that's okay. We're back now as we're continuing, and we're at Psalm chapter 55. That's right, 55, Psalm 55. We are past the 1/3 mark of the book of Psalms. So I am really enjoying the book of Psalms as it gives us this insight into some of the best poets, thousands of years ago, and kind of how they saw the world, how they understood God, how they interacted with each other. And a lot of these Psalms were collected and read amongst the exiles as well. So there's a lot of hope in hopeless situations that comes out of this. So before we jump into Psalm 55, just a quick reminder on Psalm 54. It was a nice short one, and in that it's reminded that God is the helper, that He sustains us, but it's this battle with the enemies. And as I'm kind of reflecting on it, I'm reminded of how vengeance is God's, and we can trust Him with that. We need to stay focused on God because He's got it. As we move forward, not letting our enemies distract and destroy. And I'm wearing a shirt of a bunch of Batman's enemies. So just not letting those enemies, distract and destroy and bring all the junk that enemies bring, but stay focused on God, living the best that we can, and that's what's going to ultimately win out in the end. So that's kind of the reminder on what I got from chapter 54. But now let's jump in to Psalm chapter 55. This is for the choir director. It's a Psalm of David, so David wrote it, and it's to be accompanied by string instruments, likely a harp. And when we finished, there is this one section in here that is reframing Jesus. It's one of the study sections in my Bible here. So I'll read that out, and then I'll give my reaction and my thoughts to this psalm. So I invite you to read along with me. Of course, I'm reading out of the New Living Translation, or NLT. Physical Bibles are my favorite, but the Bible app on your phone, or BibleGateway.com if you're on a computer, and you want to read along with me. Two fantastic resources. But if you'd like a physical Bible, just send me a private message and I'll try to hook you up with one. I gave out one last week, and I got a few more left that I'd like to give out to anyone that wants one. So there is your invite if you want one. Without further ado, let's jump into Psalm chapter 55. Listen to my prayer, O God. Do not ignore my cry for help. Please listen and answer me, for I am overwhelmed by my troubles. My enemies shout at me, making loud and wicked threats. They bring trouble on me and angrily hunt me down. My heart pounds in my chest. The terror of death assaults me. Fear and trembling overwhelm me. I can't stop shaking. Oh, that I had wings like a dove, then I would fly away and rest. I would fly far, far away to the quiet of the wilderness. Interlude. How quickly I would escape far from this far from this wild storm of hatred. Confuse them, O Lord, and frustrate their plans. I see violence and conflict in the city. Its walls are patrolled day and night against invaders, but the real danger is the wickedness within the city. Everything is falling apart. Their threats and cheating are rampant in the streets. It's not an enemy who taunts me. I could bear that. It is not the foes who so arrogantly insult me. I could have hidden from them. Instead, it's you, my equal, my companion and close friend. What good fellowship we once enjoyed as we walked together in the house of God. Let death stalk my enemies. Let the grave swallow them alive, for evil makes its home within them. But I will call on God, and the Lord will rescue me. Morning, noon, and night I cry out in my distress, and the Lord hears my voice. He ransoms me and keeps me safe from the battle waged against me, though many still oppose me. God, who has ruled forever, will hear and humble them. Interlude. For my enemies refuse to change their ways. They do not fear God. As for my companion, he betrayed his friends. He broke his promises. His words are as smooth as butter, but in his heart is war. His words are as soothing oceans, but underneath are daggers. Give your burdens to the Lord. He will take care of you. He will not permit the godly to slip and fall. But you, O God, will send the wicked down to the pit of destruction. Murderers and liars will die young. But I am trusting you to save me. May God add a blessing to the reading of Psalm chapter 55. This is just full of so much sadness and pain of the betrayal. Speaking of the betrayal, the reframing Jesus part is from verses 12 to 14. So I'll reread that, and then we'll read what this reframing Jesus part is, and it's entitled The Kiss of Betrayal. So verse 12 to 14 reads, "It is not an enemy who taunts me. I could bear that. It is not my foes who arrogantly insult me. I could have hidden from them. Instead, it is you, my equal, my companion and close friend. What good fellowship we once enjoyed as we walked together to the house of God." So here, when we're insulted and hurt by enemies, it would it's wound. Sorry, I'm gonna redo that. When we're insulted and hurt by enemies, it wounds, but it is to be expected. What crushes David's spirit is the ridicule and rejection he's experiencing from someone he once considered a friend. His expectations of betrayal foreshadow Jesus' own experience. Some scholars believe this passage written by David is actually a prophetic description of what would happen to Jesus in the future. Judas, one of Jesus' closest friends and part of his inner circle of 12 disciples, gives him up to the authorities, who arrest him. He leads them to where Jesus is staying and personally identifies him with a kiss on the cheek. Judas has traveled with Jesus, shared meals and stories around campfires, watched as he healed people who were blind and crippled and dying. He's even prayed and worshipped with him. Yet, with all their history together, Judas negotiates a deal to betray Jesus for his own selfish reasons. He's betrayed to turn his back on his friend. Matthew 26, verses 14 and 16, and 47 to 49. Very famous. Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, and Judas comes in and betrays Jesus with a kiss. Phew! Betrayed by one of his closest friends. So this is like somewhat prophetic. David also experienced something like this with Jonathan, his friend who he considered his brother, possibly also betrayed him, and we went over that when we read through David's story in Samuel, in the book of Samuel and 2 Samuel. So we see this betrayal happening by someone that trusts, and that trust being broken and hurt and destroyed, being let down and betrayed by those that are closest to us. David experiences it. Jesus experiences it. And sadly, you and I have experienced things like this too. I've recently experienced something like this. And it's that reminder, one, to stay focused on Jesus, like we were reading in chapter 54. Don't let this happen, but the pain is real, and God knows it and understands it. And Jesus has experienced it as well. So when we are going through that pain, it's something that we have in common with Christ. That is a common ground for us with Christ, because he also has betrayed it. He felt that sting of betrayal. And yeah, it's a painful thing, and like that pain is just throughout this entire book. And I don't know, but knowing that God has experienced it and he understands it helps me out a ton, because now, I also know that God understands when I'm in those places. He knows my emotions. Those emotions aren't going to scare him, but instead he wants to be with us as we're feeling those emotions. It's okay to feel those emotions, but don't let those feelings, distract you and make you just focus on your new enemy. But let those feelings be something that actually points you towards God, points you towards Jesus, because Jesus experienced these things too. And through just who God is, he was able to forgive them. And we might struggle to forgive, but we can be like, God, I don't want it, but I know you do. So help change my heart to bring forgiveness, and help them learn from their mistakes. Help them to turn from their wickedness and just give it over to God. I don't want it, but I want to want it, because I know that that's where you are, God. And you are so much better than me, because you genuinely wanted that. And I want to follow in your footsteps. Sometimes that's the best prayer that we can make is, I don't want it, but I want to follow you, so I know I should want it. So help me to want it. And help them out. Like, does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Yeah, that is a large part of this. One of the last things that, it's that really jumped out at me was verse 10. Its walls are patrolled day and night against invaders, but the real danger is the wickedness within the city. And then verse 11, everything is falling apart. Threats and cheating are rampant in the streets. It made me think of the church. So often we are fixated on somebody else that is coming in and trying to, pollute, destroy, and pull us away from our faith journey. And we're so fixated on others that we don't realize the danger that's within the own walls of the church. There's a lot of people within the church that are misleading, misguiding each other, and they might be misguided themselves, but distracting from God. There is lying, there's cheating rampant in the streets of the church. why it is so important to put Jesus first. Not a leader, not a pastor, not a priest, not your family, but Jesus. Why it's so important that we get in and we read and we wrestle through this stuff. Because every human has sinned. We've all fallen short. We've all betrayed. We are weak. And we get things wrong. But God never does. So help us. I'm transitioning into prayer now. Lord, help us to stay focused on you. To not put others in front of you. I thank you for the reminder of this psalm that, yes, there are people within our walls that are misleading, misguiding, and misteaching, Lord. May you get a hold of them and correct their thoughts and help them to genuinely seek you. And if there is wrong in their hearts, help to guide them back towards that. Get a hold of their hearts and transform it, Lord. May they become less and you become more. And on that note, if I am one of those people that is putting my own selfish desires, my own political thoughts, my own agendas in front of you, that is messing and warping with my interpretation of what you want, Lord, get a hold of my heart and transform it, mold it into something that looks a lot closer to you. It's so easy to point out other people's flaws, Lord, and ignore our own, but you call us to not worry about the speck in our brother's eye, but the log in our own. So if there is a log in our eyes, Lord, help us to recognize it and help us to remove it. And Lord, thank you for stepping down from heaven and feeling that sting of betrayal, one that we all know far too well. And thank you for enabling us to have these emotions, to know what it's like to love and trust and be hurt. It sucks, Lord, but you have given it to us. And you have felt it yourself. So help us to want the right things in those feelings. Help us to want those things. And even for those that betray us, Lord, I thank you for forgiving them. And give us the strength to forgive them too. And help to change their hearts so that they don't do that kind of betrayal again. Lord, help us to act justly. Help us to love mercy and to walk humbly with you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. So, yeah, that'll be it for today. Have a fantastic rest of the day. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye. And God bless.